video. We are doing a huge kid-friendly freezer snack prep. I don't want to call it meals. These are definitely more snacks. So this worked so well last time I did it. We still have a couple of things left in the freezer, but I cleaned out the freezer and we're in need of some more snacks to stock the freezer. So in today's video, we are going to be making 4 or 5 different things. The first thing that we're going to be making is uncrustables, which may sound super easy, but this is a way more cost-effective way to make them, and you can customize them to your kids' needs and control what ingredients in there. So we're going to make different types of uncrustables. We're going to make these peanut butter, it's like cereal bars. I'm copying a Trader Joe's bar that I absolutely love, so we're going to make those. We're going to make blueberry oatmeal muffins. I made those, I think, a week ago in like a meal prep video, but they didn't turn out, I didn't make as many as I wanted to because I didn't have the right pans. So we're going to remake those because they were so good and didn't last us more than that week. We're going to make waffles, and then I think that's it. So let's get started on today's meal prep. And yes, I already did the meal prep, but this is when I had time to film the intro. So that's a sneak peek of the waffles I made. So we are starting off this freezer kid snack prep with Uncrustables. I'm pretty sure every single kid loves Uncrustables. I have not bought them in forever because my 3 kids all have different tastes, to be honest. So my son doesn't like any of the actual Uncrustables because he only likes jelly on his sandwiches, and I don't think they make a jelly only one. So that was kind of what inspired me, is one, just the customization of making them yourself. So I can make him jelly only ones. He also does not like crust. So this is like making a bunch of his lunch sandwiches super easy. And I'm pretty sure this is like super cost effective. I think Uncrustables, if you just buy them at like the normal grocery store, you get 4 in a box for like $5. That's absolutely insane for really what it is. I bought Walmart white bread. I just have the jelly and peanut butter that we normally have. I made so many of these for pennies compared to what you would pay for the brand name, and you control what is in them. So I have 3 kids. I ended up making 3 different types of these. Some of my kids will eat more than one variation, but that was a huge winner that I could customize what is in the sandwich. I did get this little Uncrustable bread cutter and shaper from Amazon. This one works really good because you just use the one thing. You don't have to cut it separately and then like crimp the edges separately. It worked really well. I'm pretty sure I made over 30 sandwiches and it worked just fine. My hand didn't like hurt afterwards or anything like that. Now, the whole point of Uncrustables is no crust. So what I'm doing is I'm actually going to save all this bread and crust and make breadcrumbs. I'm very carefully only putting the filling in the middle of the bread. So I'm really trying not to get the filling on the outer crust of the bread. So when I do make breadcrumbs, I don't have to worry about any jelly or peanut butter in there. So I ended up making 3 types of these sandwiches. I made strawberry jelly only. I made peanut butter and grape jelly, and I think that's the most I made of those because both my daughters like that variation. And then I made a few peanut butter and honey. I don't know how the peanut butter and honey ones are going to freeze and defrost. I've never made those, but I do think Uncrustables sells one like that. So we'll see, and I'll report back. I only made 6 of them, but this is my new favorite thing. What's funny is my husband normally doesn't question what I'm doing. And so he was the one that went and got all these groceries for me. And so I was telling him, what I was doing today with like all this cooking. And I showed him the Uncrustables and he's like, wow, I was wondering why you bought 3 loaves of bread. And it's just funny that didn't even question it. Just is like, yep, she's probably doing something crazy, like making our own Uncrustables. I am now super intrigued to try other variations of these. I want to say I saw a grilled cheese type one, which I think would be really good. I could even do like a ham and cheese type sandwich. But for those types of sandwiches, I feel like you would have to grill them first. So they already have the pre-toasty grill type stuff to the grilled cheese. And I don't know if I would have the effort to do that to 30 sandwiches at a time. So this is a great beginner type
prep for your freezer. If you're new to this, highly recommend it. It was super easy, and I'm excited to use all this crust for breadcrumbs. You could do really whatever you wanted with it, but that's what I'm going to choose to do, is make some Italian breadcrumbs, just store those in the freezer when I need them for like meatballs and things like that. I do not have any recipe I'm following for breadcrumbs, but because this bread was fresh, I could have just let it sit out and get stale, but I put it in the oven at about 250 degrees for about 20 minutes to kind of toast it up and start the drying out process. And then I just put it out on the counter, and then we actually left and had to run a few errands. So it toasted, it cooled, and then it kind of just dried out over those few hours. And now I'm just putting in my blender. I don't have a food processor. I use this blender for everything, and I'm just adding spices. So I'm adding Italian seasoning, garlic powder, onion, salt, and red pepper, just to make a basic Italian breadcrumb. This worked out super awesome. Super easy to do, and I don't feel like I'm wasting all those crusts. So much better use of all of this. So later on in the day, I got back in the kitchen and wanted to finish up the rest of the stuff. So I decided to start these. They're copycats of these Trader Joe's peanut butter bars. They're like a version of like a Rice Krispie, but made with like Cheerios, peanuts, peanut butter, and honey. So I found a recipe online that seemed to be very close to the Trader Joe's ones. Now that I've made them and eaten them, yes, they almost 100% taste like the Trader Joe's ones. What I will say is I was using honey Cheerios, and that is kind of what led me to this. I do like those Trader Joe's bars, but I also had this box of honey Cheerios that my kids didn't want to eat. They're the Target brand. They're like the organic ones, and just the texture of them is a little weird. It's not like a normal Cheerio texture. So I was like, okay, what can I turn this into instead of wasting this whole box of cereal? And I remember these bars. But what I will say is these cereal that I was using, I started with Honey Nut Cheerios. So the cereal itself was already sweet. So these bars, now that I've eaten them, are very sweet. So I would have what I probably would have done is just cut out the sugar. This recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of sugar, which does make sense if you're following the recipe. I did not follow the recipe because I used Honey Nut Cheerios, and then I also used honey as my like binder and sweetener versus corn syrup. I've never tasted pure corn syrup, but I feel like honey may be sweeter than it. And so with the sugar, honey, and the Honey Nut Cheerios, these were just a little bit too sweet for me. I would have liked it toned down a little bit. And I probably would have added a little bit more peanuts. The recipe called for 1 cup of peanuts. I probably would have done 1.5 cups, maybe even 2 cups to get more of those in there. But guys, these bars are so good. They are peanut buttery, salty, honey, sweet, and you can really get creative with them. The only other thing I'll say is they are very soft, so I was able to cut them. I did put them in the fridge for a little bit to harden before I cut them, but as soon as they even warmed up a tad bit, they kind of start a little bit falling apart. I'm interested to see how they freeze and defrost. I did freeze a bunch of them. I'm sure they're going to be fine. I don't think it's going to affect like the quality or the taste. I just don't know how well they'll hold up. I don't know. It did call for corn syrup, and I didn't want to use corn syrup in the recipe, so that may have held them together a little bit more. I may play around, maybe even some gelatin in here or like a marshmallow just to like make it a little bit harder. Because like if you want to pack these to go, I wouldn't put this in my bag because I feel like even if it was in like a Ziploc, it would totally fall apart on you. But this one definitely is a good dupe recipe for the Trader Joe's bars, and I got 20 bars for probably the price of 1 box from Trader Joe's. Next up, we are going to start our waffle batter. I actually made these waffles earlier this week, but I only made like a single batch of them and they were all gone in a few days. So I am doubling this waffle recipe. It works really good with the waffle iron I bought. I actually just bought this new one and it makes the circle waffles to try to look like Eggo waffles. I have a square waffle maker, and even though I've used the exact same recipe, my son does not like square waffles. He likes circle waffles. And so this is what we're doing. We're making circle waffles. I really like making your own like waffles and pancakes because they're normally pretty easy to make. You can make a lot of them. They freeze and reheat really well, and you can add in a lot of healthy ingredients. And it's just always better making these things from scratch. I didn't want to get too crazy with making these. The only thing I think I added extra that's not in the recipe is I used butter instead of oil, which maybe this recipe does call for butter. I don't remember, but I always use butter or coconut oil instead of like any seed type oils. And then I used maple extract in the batter, and between the butter and the maple, these things smell delicious and taste delicious on their own. And then I also end up adding in flaxseed. Flaxseed is super healthy. It really doesn't have like too much of a taste. It is like a little bit of a nutty flavor, but it works super well in recipes like this. It just gives it a little bit of extra flavor, a little thickness to it, and some added health benefits. So that was really all I did here. I've done it before where you add a protein powder. I just am out of protein powder, but normally you can replace some of the flour measurement with protein powder. It will bake up and then you have added protein in it. So that's always a good trick if you're trying to make your own like protein pancakes or waffles, because those things are ridiculously expensive, and that's all that they're doing is adding some protein powder in their batter. So I would really recommend that if you have protein powder on hand. It's also a good way to use protein powder if you don't like the taste of it in like shakes. So anyways, I am doing a double batch of this waffle recipe. I counted everything I made, guys, and you think I would remember or write it down, but I didn't, and I don't remember. But I want to say I got 30 to 40 waffles out of doubling this recipe. I'll link obviously all the recipes, and I will link this waffle maker because it does make like perfect Eggo-sized waffles, and what kid does not want those? So I wanted to do this batter and have these cooking because obviously I can only cook these 4 at once. So I just wanted to get this part going while I moved on to the next thing. And then I did use, I think, a 1/3 cup measuring cup to fill them. So I made sure I filled them all with equal amounts the entire time. So I always make sure with the first round that I'm filling them up, they're cooking evenly enough, and these ones are turning out great. Like I said, this wasn't a new recipe, so wasn't too worried there. And then while I was getting these cooked and ready, I started soaking my oats for my oatmeal blueberry muffins, which I'm going to start next. So I think my camera died, but I was cranking out a bunch of waffles, and then I did the batter for the blueberry oatmeal muffins. I actually made these in another vlog, exact same recipe. They're extremely delicious. I just didn't have enough muffin baking pans at that time to make as many as I wanted, so I doubled the recipe. They're amazing, delicious muffins. You guys will see them in a little bit. So this was probably like one of the easier meal prep freezer things I've ever done because it was not a ton of like cooking and pots and pans. It was pretty simple. I had to make 2 batters. I had to make the waffle batter and then the batter for the blueberry muffins. But both of those were pretty easy, and I kind of did them simultaneously. So not a ton of dishes. It used a lot of the same ingredients. The peanut butter Cheerio bars were pretty easy because they're no bake. So I basically mixed everything in the bowl and then just poured them out on a pan, and those just set while I was doing everything else. There is a little bit of cooking to that recipe, which I messed up originally. You do have to boil the honey and sugar, I think, or maple syrup. I don't know, something you have to boil and then pour that over your peanut butter. But it really wasn't that hard. It was just easy in like a little soft saucepan. So that was all super easy. And then the Uncrustables I did that morning. So the Uncrustables I did first thing that morning and then took a break because we had some other things we were doing around the house and running errands. And those were actually super easy. You're just making a ton of sandwiches, but I made, over 30 sandwiches in less than, I'm going to say 30 minutes, and cleanup was super easy on that. because there's really no dishes. So this is a very good beginner type meal prep if you are new to this and want to make healthy snacks that your kids are actually going to like and eat. That is the most important thing. Do not make stuff. Do not spend your time on this if your kids aren't going to eat it. So I rarely try out a new recipe and make like a bulk amount of it. Like these Cheerio bars, they are new to us, but I just made a single recipe, like a single size recipe, which is 20 bars, which is insane and actually is really good. There's no way we're going to eat all 20 of these bars. So I think I bagged them up in like bags of 6, and then we'll just kind of eat through those. But these are very good recipes to start with. Nothing difficult, nothing hard, but this will definitely help you out. I have waffles for breakfast or snacks. I have uncrustable sandwiches that will make easy lunches. Now, my kids aren't just going to eat like an uncrustable. They'll probably have some fruit, veggies, chips with it, but at least that part's done. At least if we run out of bread or we run out of jelly, I have a whole stock of these sandwiches in my freezers now.
All right, and I'm finally done. I will be honest, this was actually a pretty simple meal prep compared to what I normally do. I wasn't in the kitchen the whole time. I actually made the sandwiches, the Uncrustables first, and then we went on a little shopping adventure, and then we came back home, and then I started the other things. So this was not as intense as I feel like my last meal prep, because there was like no dough to make or anything like that, or cheese to shred. So this one is a little bit simpler, and if you're just trying this out, this is your first time, don't do all these recipes. Pick one or maybe two and start that way. Start small. So I am so excited. I have tons of snacks, over, I don't even know, close to 100 items that we made, and plus a whole bag of breadcrumbs. So I did not waste the crust from the Uncrustables. I have a whole thing of Italian breadcrumbs. I am going to store this in the freezer and just use it as needed. First up, I made all the Uncrustables. These are just plain strawberry. These ones are peanut butter and honey, and these ones are peanut butter and grape jelly. I think I made 30 sandwiches. My kids have already eaten them, some of them though. These were in the freezer, so they're all frozen now individually. So I'm going to bag them by their type in separate freezer bags. These are so good. These are those copycat Trader Joe's peanut butter cereal bars. The recipe said it was going to make 20, but I feel like I have closer to 30 here because I cut them a little bit smaller. The only thing different I would do is I would add more peanuts. So it called for 1 cup of peanuts. I would probably add 1.5 cups to 2 cups. And I would not put in the granulated sugar. The honey is more than enough as sweetener. So these are a winner. They're so good, and my whole house smells good. I have 24 of the blueberry oatmeal muffins. I'm gonna freeze half and keep half out this week for breakfast. And then I have, I think, over 30 waffles that I will freeze and just have in bags for the kids for breakfast. So very successful meal prep. If you guys like these types of videos, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed, and then leave down below in the comments if you want me to keep doing like kid type snacks, if you want me to do like dinner. I really need to stock my freezer with dinner meals. I used all the ones I had. I had a bunch of stuff and I used them all, and they are life changing when you don't have to make like a full on dinner. You already pre-did some of it. So I'm out. My freezer's actually empty, my deep freezer, and my freezer in here is really only full of kid snacks. So I'm always interested in trying more. It does take a lot of planning and prepping, a lot of groceries, a lot of time, but look at this. That's exciting. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great day. Bye.